Hi, everyone. Good to see you again. I'm Anne-Marie Green.
And I'm Vladimir Juta. Thanks for joining us. The President of the United States will take executive action to add a citizenship question to the 2020 census. He made the announcement on Twitter. He'll have a news conference at the Rose Garden today. It is a move that is expected to be challenged immediately in the courts.
The move could be in violation of the Supreme Court decision, which temporarily blocked the question from being added. Opponents say that this is a partisan issue and that asking about citizenship on the census would deter people from filling it out, leading to an inaccurate count. So we are joined by CBS News White House correspondent Tracy and Paula Reid, both of them standing by for us. Ben, we're going to start with you. What do we know so far? And do we know when this might happen? And maybe you could clarify, too. Maybe we'll ask Paula this. I was going to ask the difference between an action and an order, but Paula, that's your area. So we'll find out. What do we know about when this is going to happen?
Well, so far in terms of what we know, I just talked to a White House official here at the White House. He says that the president will take executive action this afternoon on the census. This is believed to be in regards to this question that the president wants on the census. But here's the interesting part. This White House official said that not all executive action is an executive order, perhaps suggesting that this will be something short of an executive order, which would likely involve more court challenges. As for when this is going to happen, it's expected to take place this afternoon in the Rose Garden after the social media summit that the president is hosting here today at the White House. There is some concern about weather, so they also are planning an alternate location for that if it comes to that. I'll defer to Paula to explain the difference between an executive action and an executive order.
So, Paula, let's toss that question to you. And also, if you could address what sort of legal challenges the president could face for this.
Look, it's been almost 2 weeks to the day since the Supreme Court blocked the administration's effort to add a citizenship question to the census. And what the Supreme Court said was that it's not that you can never have a citizenship question. It's just that the way the administration went about it this time, arguing that they needed this question to enforce the Voting Rights Act, they said, no. That's pretext. We're not buying your justification. So after that, the Justice Department said, OK, we'll drop the question. We'll start to print these out. But then the president said he wanted to fight. But there was no legally viable path to go back to the Supreme Court before the 2020 census and argue that suddenly they had thought of a legitimate reason that wasn't pretext. Now, I've spoken with sources at the Justice Department since the president tweeted that he wanted to continue to fight about this, and no one has been able to convince me that there is a viable option for the president to successfully do this. Now, he has batted around the possibility of an executive order or an executive action. In terms of the difference, well, the president has a lot of different executive authority that he can take, different executive actions. For example, he could issue a memo or a decree or an executive order. But let me tell you, none of those are going to pass judicial review. This is not a viable path for the president to pursue. This is not a legal maneuver. This is a political one. The president wants to do this because there are members of the Republican Party who want him to push on this issue and convince voters that if they don't get a citizenship question, that's not Donald Trump's fault. That is the fault of Chief Justice John Roberts and no one else.
And, you know, the reality of it is that we've seen the president pursue this sort of strategy before for other things, whether it was the travel ban initially that was challenged, children at the border that was challenged. And often what has happened, Vlad, is that he gets a little bit of what he wanted in the end, but there's a lot of chaos before that.
Yes, that's exactly right.
I was going to say, I think there's a big question as to how much of this is show and how much is substance. You know, going after these sorts of things, even if he doesn't get them accomplished, does give President Trump a useful foil when he's out on the campaign trail to say, see, I'm trying to do these things for you. This is why you need to reelect me, because we need more people on the Supreme Court that agree with us. So even if he doesn't get exactly what he wants in the moment, this does play to the base and it does help him when he's out on the trail.
Yeah, something that we're going to talk to Tim Alberta about, who specifically, Ben, mentioned that, you know, he's got that book out, American Carnage, and he says exactly that the Trump supporters love President Trump because he comes out swinging for them. Ben, you've also been covering Labor Secretary Alex Acosta. You were at his news conference yesterday. What surprised you? Did he do enough to save his job? We know that relationships with the president, this is not someone who's an early supporter of President Trump. Doesn't seem to be a very strong bond between the two. So if it becomes politically expedient, could we see the Secretary of Labor leave his job?
Certainly. You know, everyone is useful here until they're not. And we have seen with other White House officials, even cabinet members, that the president has supported them publicly until he doesn't want to support them publicly anymore. I have been told by a White House official that the president has now seen some of Secretary Acosta's news conference, but this official would not characterize the president's reaction to it. In terms of what kind of surprised me or what I took away from that yesterday was that he talked for a really long time. He took questions for about an hour, which I think really surprised people. About 2 questions into it, one of the PR people said, okay, next question's the last question. And he went on for about 40 more minutes after that. You saw him try to strongly defend the actions he took. The president opened the door for Secretary Acosta earlier this week, saying sometimes prosecutors look back and they wish they had done things differently in hindsight. That is not the tack that Secretary Acosta took. He said in his opinion he did everything right. He is supportive of these new cases against Jeffrey Epstein, and he says that his actions do deserve a stiffer sentence, but that what he did at the time was the right thing to do.
All right, Ben, Paula, thank you so much, guys.